There's a lot of football to play before the ACC Championship game, but we know who those two teams, unlike all the other conferences, we know who those two teams are going to be. Well, we got Georgia, LSU in the SEC. But anyway, we know who those two teams are going to be, unlike most of the conferences out there. And it looks like it's going to be the most competitive ACC Championship game we've seen in a long time, because obviously Clemson, their last few title game appearances were complete blowouts, and Pitt took care of Wake Forest. That wasn't much of a game last year, but this game could be really interesting, and you could have two 11-1 football teams, which would be a good thing for the conference, and that a winner would at least be in the conversation for the next day's selection to the playoff.
Yeah, this might be the most high-profile ACC championship game outside of the Clemson Notre Dame game, which was, that's kind of got an asterisk beside it because of Notre Dame being in there 1 year. But
that one,
yeah. But outside of that one, this would be probably the most high-profile one yet, assuming both teams take care of business on their way there. It'll probably be a top 10 matchup, and I totally agree. It'll probably be the most competitive. This UNC team is one of the best offenses in the country. Drake May's not getting enough attention when it comes to the Heisman discussion. I mean, he's just killing it. That offense is really explosive, and we've seen the issues Clemson's had at time on the back end of that defense. It's been better of late, but we have seen issues there. So, I mean, I'm 100% on board. I think this is, like I said a minute ago, football tends to come down to matchups, and this could be one that doesn't favor Clemson as much as, let's say if some of the other teams in the Coastal.
There's a few teams across the country that, and I'm talking about teams that have talent. I'm not talking about the low-end teams that struggle year to year, like Colorado, somebody like that. But, you could put this Miami team along with Texas A&M, the first two teams that come to mind for me as teams that have talent on the roster, but at times much of the season have looked just like they're just completely coming apart off the rails. And they did pull it together enough to beat Georgia Tech pretty comfortably last weekend. But do you have any concern about this game?
I was kind of surprised Clemson was a 19.5 point favorite when it opened. That was, I wasn't expecting it to be quite that big. Ruco Rojo talked yesterday about how they would not overlook Miami, no matter what Miami's record is. And again, no matter what their record is, that team's got some talent on it. They've had some quarterback issues. The freshman, I forget his name, got his first career start last week while they're waiting on Van Dyke to get back. And while he didn't light it up, I thought he did the one thing they needed him to do, and that's protect the football. Miami had been turning it over a lot, and he didn't turn it over any in that win over Georgia Tech, and I thought that was key for them. He didn't throw for a bunch of yards, but he had a high completion percentage and no turnovers. And Clemson is a team that is struggling with turnovers right now. Once again, they fumbled the ball 4 times against Louisville, and three of them lost the turnover margin and won the game. They're 2-1 in their last 3 games. All 3 of them they've lost the turnover margin, and to me, that's not the recipe for success. If Miami comes in, protects the football, and isn't turning it over, and Clemson is still being sloppy, you never know. You might end up with a game there in the second half.
Yeah, it was a pretty impressive showing for Jakari Brown because he's a true freshman, supposed to be a project, just keep him third string, not going to see the field. And then Tyler Van Dyke goes down. Jake Garcia is completely ineffective, turnover machine. They give Jakari Brown a start. Like you say, they didn't ask a lot of him, but he threw 3 touchdown passes, 13 of 16, and protected the ball for a first-time starting quarterback. It's pretty darn good.
Yeah, you can't ask for a whole lot more than that. To me, it all comes down to no interceptions. Freshman quarterback, no interceptions. It'll be a whole different animal playing in Clemson this weekend, though. That's not. I don't know if that game was in Georgia Tech or at Miami. I can't remember, but
There was nobody in the stands, regardless.
It's going to be 80,000 plus
place.
in the stands this weekend. It'll be a little bit different. I'm kind of curious to see if Van Dyke could be back this weekend.
Yeah, that as well. It's not like he's done for the season necessarily, but he was in rough shape against Florida State the week before. They trotted him out there. He could only make it a series or two, and then he was just in all sorts of pain and has a shoulder issue.
Yeah, Mario Cristobal, he's kind of like Dabo Sweeney. He doesn't provide a whole lot of insight into injuries. He just says a lot of day-to-day stuff, and I think he said something that the other day about Van Dyke being day-to-day. So I wasn't sure about how far along he was. I know he tried to go against Florida State and really couldn't, but when I heard that day-to-day, it just reminded me of Dabo Sweeney.
Jason, with a lot of these rivalry matchups on Thanksgiving weekend, especially for these teams that look like they can take care of business this weekend, the fan base, maybe even the teams themselves, if they're not disciplined, start to look forward to anything. Does anybody bring up South Carolina at all?
I don't think so, man. That's one thing that this team has been good about. They don't get too far ahead of themselves. Dabo Sweeney was actually asked about North Carolina the other night, and he went in and he talked a little bit about them. I was kind of surprised he didn't say we're not there yet, but I don't think you'll catch this team looking ahead to South Carolina. They know they still got a lot to play for. There's still a lot on the table for them. And getting to 10 wins is not one of the stated goals, but it's definitely one of those unstated goals to keep that streak going. And they can do that this weekend against Miami. It's senior day. I don't think you got to worry about them too much looking ahead.
Jason Priester, allclemson.com. Get on over there to allclemson.com on the SI platform to check out Jason's work covering Clemson football with a game at 3:30 Eastern against Miami. All right, Jason, appreciate you stopping by as always.
Yes, sir, man. Always a pleasure. Appreciate it, Mark.